Hello everyone! Today I'm working on a commission. It's a custom portrait of a cute black cat. His name is Coyote. Join me as I am showing my process from the sketch to the final stroke, and in this video, which is going to be a speed up process of me painting, I will be explaining what I do, how I do it and why, as well as sharing my tips and tricks on achieving lifelike realism of the portrait of the cat, and how I mix perfect gray colors for the fur, how I add highlights, paint whiskers, and all the small details that make the cat look alive. In the future, I plan to share a real-time tutorials on painting animals and also other subjects, so subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss it. Okay, let's go. I paint every pet portrait using wet on wet technique. This is what I start with. And so here with my cat named Coyote, I'm starting with applying clean water on paper. I'm using cotton, 100% cotton paper, and prepare the space for future work. I need to be sure that the paint is absorbed deep into paper's layers. So now I need to get my perfect gray, and I'm mixing the three primary colors, red, yellow and blue, to get nice base color. This is going to be my underpainting. Trust me, I'm gonna have many layers going on this cat. And also mixing my perfect gray, perfect specifically speaking for this cat. I want to have a bit more of blue, so it's leaning towards blue. It's a bit cold, it's a cooler color, so this is muted gray that's leaning towards blue. And I'm laying my first layer called underpainting, marking all the areas of the cat's face, including the white fluffy area on the chest, which I marked a little bit with very light transparent yellow. And moving on, adding a bit more concentrated gray color on the face. Still working on the wet paper, so it's still my first layer, adding the darker tones while everything is wet, so colors are blending and mixing smoothly. I'm not in a rush and I need to make sure that there are no sharp edges nowhere on the face of my cat. So while the first layer is wet, I'm constantly adding slightly darker tones to build up this depth on the face of the cat, while avoiding lighter areas such as on the cheek or about the eye, to make sure that the highlights are preserved. They're still light in there. And then I'm moving to paint the ears, and I'm also laying down the first base color, which is pink, and immediately adding darker tones to make sure that all the colors are blending nicely and smoothly. What's important to me though is to keep those highlights clean, so the area above the eye, like the kind of sort of an eyebrow, and the nose, and around the mouth, those areas I want them highlighted and clean. And I'm gonna do the same with another ear, also starting pretty light. I know that I'm gonna build up the stone later on, so I'm not worried to get density from the start. And because watercolor is transparent, it allows me to work in multiple layers and still see this first base layer shining through, which is going to be this pink color in my case. With a flat brush, I am removing paint that I don't need to create those highlights I was mentioning before. So in this particular case, those highlights are right under the eyes, and they make eyes stand out and create those puffy cheeks. So that's why I removed some of the paint, and now painting the eyes with bright yellow, but the actual cat's eyes are not like clean, super shiny yellow, so I need to kind of tint it a little bit. That's why I'm adding a little bit of darker tone, a bit of gray, to make the eyes, the yellow color of the eyes less bright and thus more realistic. While painting this first layer of the eyes with yellow, I am using this as an opportunity to correct the shape of the eyes by slightly adjusting this oval of the eye, and then I would need to wait for the eyes to get fully dry before I can actually add any sort of shadow or tone into them. That's why I'm moving towards painting the nose. While working on the nose, I am immediately blending the edges of the nose so that the color bleeds a little bit and creates more realistic feel. I don't want the nose to be cut out, visually looking sharp. That's why I'm smoothing out the edges, make them bleed a little bit, and this way the nose will be more integrated into the face of the cat. To be able to continue working on the face of my cat, I need to make this layer wet again, make the paper wet again. Otherwise, I will be struggling with sharp edges, and this is gonna slow down my work. And that's why, as I mentioned in the beginning, I always gonna have to use wet and wet technique to achieve soft transitions and create soft feel of the fur. That's why I'm reapplying clean water carefully on the whole face of the cat, so that when I add darker tones, those colors are bleeding nicely and smoothly. It also makes it easier for me to blend the colors, even if they flow in a wrong direction. I can take a small brush and sort of direct my paint where I need it to go, or remove it, or lift it, which is the same as remove it. Anyway, I can correct whatever I think is not looking well with the semi-wet brush. And because the paper is wet and the paint is wet, it will go away easily. I would also want to darken the ears a little bit. They were looking too bright and too light, so I need to increase the density of the color that I already have on the ears. That's why I added slightly darker tone again. And as you can see, I'm working on different areas simultaneously. So I'm moving from the ear to the face to the cheek, back to another ear, and at the same time smoothing the edges of my strokes. As I said, I need to make sure that all of my strokes are nice and smooth and there are no sharp edges nowhere. So at some point I'm gonna have to take care of those strokes on the cheek by stretching the stroke everywhere on the face. I'm not so much worried about that particular part because I know I'm gonna make it darker, so with the darker tone all the sharp lines are going to be hidden. When painting a black animal, it's a particular type of challenge because you can't just use pure black paint. It's going to make your painting look flat, and you want to make sure that there's volume and three-dimensionality in your painting. That's why I prefer to work with gray color that I mix by myself using primaries, and sometimes I would add neutral black into my mix to achieve the darkest area, because even though the animal is black, it never really is that simple. The cat doesn't exist, it's not isolated, so there are other colors surrounding the cat that affect the way we see the color of the cat. And so if there's lots of light like dropping on the face, then we need to show the highlights on the face, which will help us make it look more three-dimensional, because essentially this is the game of light and shadow that creates this feeling of three-dimensionality in the painting. And the more you show this contrast, the more realistic and lifelike the portrait is going to look. Also, there might be other colors surrounding the cat that also affect the way we see colors. So maybe if the light is soft, the fur will be feeling warmer, and this white fur of the cat will be more leaning towards yellow, for example. And if the light is cold, the cat would be leaning towards blue. So what I want to say is that colors, they don't exist in isolation. And while saying all this, I'm moving forward with adding darker tones and building up depth on my cat. As I said, many layers, and here I'm adding yet another darker tone, my gray with a touch of black, to show the shadow right under the face, to show that the face is three-dimensional. It's dropping shadow on the body. That's why right under the head there is darker area. And also this is an opportunity for me to work on those on the fur, these small hairs here and there with a tiny rigger brush, showing the texture. So I can't just leave it white, it would be a bit weird and flat, frankly. That's why, and I still need to show a little bit of a shadow on the whiteness of the fur with very transparent gray color, and also use this as an opportunity to show separate hairs here and there for the texture. I don't need to paint every single hair of the cat, obviously, but I need to hint on this furry texture so that the human eye kind of makes the whole picture and guess the rest. And again, I'm adding darker tones on the ears, and this time I'm going to add the same darker tone on the rest of the body to achieve the same density across the whole portrait. So to make sure that the darkness and the density of the color is even everywhere, I need to make this painting look whole. That's why I'm using this as an opportunity to sort of connect all the parts of the face in one, in terms of the tone. For me, it's also an opportunity to show textures, and with the flat brush I can lift the pigment to show some hairs or add the shadow right under the fur, under the hair, with the same brush. So playing with the flat brush gives me this fluffy feel of the cat. When I know that the area around the eyes is dry, I feel secure to paint the eyes, to paint the outline of the eyes, because that part should be sharp and dark. Also, my hand should be steady so that the line doesn't look curvy, that the hand doesn't shake. So that's a pretty difficult part, but also very it's challenging but enjoyable for me. I like it, and I'm always worried that my hand will shake and my eye will turn out like weird or something. So yeah, that needs practice, and also thinner brush will give you nice and delicate line, but also more chances to have this shaky stroke. Also, in the corners of the eye, I need to dilute the color, otherwise it's gonna look weird, like a mask. So right around the eye, it's nice and crisp and sharp, and in the corners, it's a bit diluted, so that I connect those strokes with the rest of the face. The eyes is a sphere, and so if I just leave it the way it is, it's gonna look like a circle, just a yellow circle. To make it look like a sphere, which is three-dimensional, I need to add a little bit of a shadow around it, in the corners as well. That's why I'm adding darker tone in the corners of the eyes. But I don't go everywhere on the eye because I need to paint the iris, and that also needs to be nice and sharp and dry so that the color doesn't bleed into the yellow area. Eyes is really my favorite part to paint in animal portraits, because I feel like this is the one of the moments where you can really transform the portrait and make it look like the animal you're painting, to make it look recognizable. So it's not just a cat, it's Coyote, it's that cat that that the family loves and recognizes, that expression, that feeling in the eyes. It's all transferred through the shape of the eye and the look. So it's very important to catch this correct shape of the eyes to transfer the expression. And once more, I need to add clean water on the face of the cat. I need to be very careful so not to pick up the existing layers, and that's why 100% cotton paper is really, really good for. It can handle a lot of layers in the water, so that you can add more and more and more without ruining the previous layers, without lifting the previous layers, like it can happen with cellulose paper. And in general, cellulose doesn't really hold so much water and so much paint, which is fine. I mean, if the artist style is more loose and sort of like using cauliflower effects and stuff like that, like sharp edges, if that's the style, cellulose paper is perfect for this. With cotton, the paper basically doing the job for you in most cases, because it keeps humid and water in its layers for so long that you can move them and dilute them as much as you want and avoid sharp layers. So I even out left and right side of the cat to make sure that the shadows are the same on the left and on the right. I don't want to have a cat where one half of the face is darker than another, even though it's possible if the source of light is coming from the left, for example, then the right side will be darker. But in my case, it's not the case. So I need to even out the shadows and dark tones everywhere on the face. And so now it's only the matter of details that I need to show on the cat, like the dots where the whiskers are growing from, maybe a few spots on the face, mark the nose. So really just zoom out, look at the portrait and check if there's some contrast needed that I need to add. And then I will just need to paint the final touch with white gouache. I'll add some whiskers, maybe highlights on the eyes, and that will be it. This is our portrait for today, little fluffy coyote.